My name is Myra Templeton. I'm 31 years old. The day before my sister's wedding, she sent me a text message that changed everything. It said, "You're out of my wedding. Only real family belongs here." I read it once, then twice, then a third time just to make sure I wasn't imagining it. After that, I replied with one sentence. My mother was in the room when Jessica read my message out loud. She laughed, actually laughed. Then she told everyone I was bluffing. She said that by morning, I'd show up at the door with pastries and an apology, just like I always did. She was still laughing when she went to bed that night. She wasn't laughing when the phone rang the next morning. But before I tell you what happened, take a second to like the video, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from, your city, your state, your country, your time zone. I always love seeing where these stories reach. Now let me take you back 3 months, to the day I walked into my sister's fiancé's office parking lot and saw something I was never supposed to see. But first, you need some context. My father died 8 years ago, pancreatic cancer. Fast, brutal, unforgiving. I was 23. My sister Jessica had just turned 18. And my mother, Diane, fell apart in a way I didn't think was possible for someone who used to run the PTA like a military commander. She stopped going to work, stopped opening the mail, stopped paying the bills. The mortgage fell behind, 2 months, then 3. I remember finding a stack of overdue notices stuffed inside a cereal box, like hiding them would somehow make them disappear. At the time, I'd already been out of college for 2 years. I had an accounting degree and a decent job at a mid-sized firm in town. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. And when I found those notices, I didn't hesitate. I called the bank. Set up automatic mortgage payments from my account. Then I told my mother I'd handle things until she got back on her feet. She never got back on her feet. That first year, I paid the mortgage, the utilities, and the property taxes. I drove my mother to therapy every Tuesday. I helped Jessica fill out her college applications. I co-signed her student housing lease. And when her tuition bill came in $12,000 a year after financial aid, I covered that too. Nobody asked me to. That part matters. Nobody sat me down and said, "Myra, you have to carry this family now." I just did it, because my father was gone and somebody had to. And in the back of my mind, I kept hearing his voice. Take care of them. What I didn't realize was that the promise I made to a dead man in my own head would become a cage I'd spend the next 8 years trapped inside. Here's the thing about being the person who always gives. After a while, people stop noticing the giving. They just start expecting it. Jessica graduated with a communications degree, then bounced between 3 jobs in 2 years. Every time she quit or got fired or needed time to figure things out, she called me. Not our mother. Me, just until I get back on my feet, she'd say, so I paid her rent for 6 straight months. Then it was her car insurance, then her credit card balance, then groceries, then emergency transfers. Every time she promised she'd pay me back, she never did, and I never asked. My mother's line was always the same, "Jessica's more fragile than you. She feels things more deeply." As if I didn't feel anything at all. Last year I turned 30. It was a Saturday. I'd been quietly looking forward to it for weeks. I even made a reservation at a little Italian restaurant I'd wanted to try. I didn't tell anyone, because honestly, I assumed my family would remember my birthday. Jessica posted an Instagram story from brunch with her friends, mimosas, charcuterie, laughter, the whole perfect little spread. My mother called me at 2 in the afternoon. Not to say happy birthday, to ask if I could drive her to a podiatrist appointment. I sat in the parking lot for 40 minutes while she was inside. Not once did she mention my birthday. On the drive home, I finally brought it up. She blinked at me and said, "Oh, honey, I thought that was next week." That night, my best friend Colleen showed up with a cupcake and said something I wasn't ready to hear. She said, "They don't forget your birthday, Myra. They just don't think it matters." She was right. 6 months ago, Jessica got engaged. Brandon Hale, 28. Good-looking, clean-cut, worked in commercial real estate, or at least he said he did. He had the smile of a man who knew exactly how to make a room like him, and the bank account of a man who spent everything making sure they would. Jessica picked the venue before she picked the bridesmaid dresses. Wren Valley Estate. A converted farmhouse on 12 acres with string lights, a stone patio, and a creek running behind the ceremony space. $18,000 just for the reservation and deposit. Brandon couldn't cover it. My mother certainly couldn't, and Jessica didn't even pretend to consider anything cheaper. She just looked at me across the dinner table one night and said, "You're so much better at handling this stuff than I am." So I called the venue. I filled out the contract. I put down my credit card for the deposit. My name went on every line. Myra Templeton. Then came the caterer, $14,000. The florist, $6,500. The photographer, $8,500. I contacted each vendor personally. I negotiated terms. I reviewed every contract. I signed every agreement. I paid every deposit. Jessica picked the aesthetic. I handled the reality. She chose salmon for the entree, peony arrangements, and the candid-style photography package. I handled the paperwork, signatures, payment schedules, and legal responsibility. She never once asked whose name was actually on the contracts. Why would she? Someone else was always taking care of it. $47,000 total. Nobody thanked me in any way that really meant anything. The closest I got was after the tasting, when Jessica hugged me and said, "See, this is why I need you." Need, not appreciate, not love. Need, and I didn't understand then that my name on those contracts would become the only leverage I'd ever have. Then Brandon's mother entered the picture. Gail Hale, 61, silver bob. Pearl earrings that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. She ran the women's auxiliary at her church and organized the annual Founders' Day gala in town. She was the kind of woman who could make you feel underdressed while standing in your own kitchen. I first met her at a bridal shower, planning meeting I wasn't even invited to. I only found out it existed because Colleen saw a photo on Jessica's private story. When I got there, Gail looked at me across the table and said, "You're very involved for a sister." Most brides prefer their mother to take the lead. I glanced at Diane, waiting for her to say something, anything. Maybe, actually, Myra has been handling most of the wedding. Or even, "We're glad she's here." Instead, my mother nodded and said, "You're right. Myra should probably step back a little." That was the first cut, and it came from my own mother. What I didn't know then was that Diane had already given Gail a very specific version of the truth. When Gail asked who was paying for the venue, Diane said, "Our family is handling it. Not Myra is paying for everything herself. Not my eldest daughter has spent $47,000 already. Just. Our family is handling it." Because telling the truth would have meant admitting that without one daughter's bank account, this wedding wouldn't exist. And Diane would rather lose me than lose face. That was the second cut. I just hadn't felt how deep it went yet. Over the next few weeks, I started disappearing from the process. Jessica stopped copying me on vendor emails. The wedding planning group chat, the one I created, went silent. Later, I found out a new one had been made without me. I only knew because the florist emailed me a revised arrangement list referencing the bride's group chat, and none of those changes had come through me. I called Jessica. No answer. I texted, "Can we talk about the floral changes?" 4 hours later, she replied, "Gail and Mom are helping now." "You don't need to worry about it." I stared at that message for a long time. "You don't need to worry about it." As if I'd taken on $47,000 worth of legal and financial responsibility because I was bored. That night, I called my mother. I tried to keep my voice steady. "I'm still paying for this wedding," I said. "I have a right to know what's being changed." Diane let out that sigh, the one that instantly made me feel 12 years old again. "That's exactly what Jessica means," she said. "You always make it about the money." "It is about the money," I said. "It's my money." "And that," she said, "is why she feels small around you." I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. Later that night, I sat at my desk and opened the folder on my laptop. Every contract, every receipt, every invoice, every confirmation email. And over again, I saw the same name. Myra Templeton, Myra Templeton, Myra Templeton. I didn't know it at the time, but some part of me was already taking inventory. I tried one more time to salvage things. I asked Jessica to meet me for coffee, just the two of us. No Diane, no Gail, no audience, she agreed. Then she showed up 40 minutes late, still in workout clothes, with her phone face up on the table between us like a timer counting down how long she was willing to stay. Before I'd even taken my second sip, she said, "Look, I know you've helped a lot, I do, but you make everything about you. The planning, the money, the decisions. It's like this is your wedding instead of mine. I've spent $47,000, Jessica." She pointed at me immediately. "There, the number. You always throw the number around. It's not throwing it around, it's a fact." She leaned back, crossed her arms, and something changed behind her eyes. Not guilt, not gratitude, something harder. "You want to know what's exhausting?" she said. "Everyone keeps telling me how lucky I am to have you. Your sister is amazing. Myra is such a saint. I'm sick of being Myra's little sister. Sick of feeling like the helpless charity case while you play hero." I just looked at her. Then I asked, very quietly, "So you don't want my help?" She grabbed her phone. I knew this would go like this. I paid for both coffees. Then I sat in my car for 10 full minutes before starting the engine, watching her drive away in the car whose insurance I had paid for the last 2 years. 3 weeks later, everything changed. It was a Thursday afternoon. I needed Brandon's signature on a wedding insurance form. The venue required it, and the deadline was the next day. I called ahead. His receptionist said he'd be in all afternoon. So I drove to his office, a small commercial real estate firm in a strip mall off Route 9. When I pulled into the parking lot, the first thing I noticed was his car. It was parked in the back row, away from the entrance. That was strange, because Brandon always parked up front. Brandon liked being seen. I was halfway across the lot when the rear passenger door opened. A woman stepped out. Mid-30s, dark hair pulled back, adjusting the collar of her blouse. She smoothed down her skirt, checked her reflection in the window, and walked quickly toward the side entrance of the building. Then Brandon got out. Same door. He straightened his tie. Ran a hand through his hair, turned toward the building. And then he saw me. I was standing maybe 20 feet away, keys in one hand, folder under my arm, his insurance form inside it. The color left his face so fast it was almost violent. For a full 3 seconds, he just stood there staring at me like I was a hallucination. I didn't move. I didn't run. I didn't reach for my phone. I just looked at him, and he knew. He caught up to me before I made it back to my car. "Myra, wait, please." I kept walking. He stepped in front of me. "It's not what it looks like." I looked at him, really looked. His collar was crooked. There was a faint smear near his jawline. Lip gloss, maybe. "How long?" I asked. He blinked. "What? How long, Brandon?" His shoulders dropped. He looked toward the building, then back at me. 4 months. 4 months. Jessica had been engaged for 6. "Does she know?" "No," his voice cracked. "And she can't. Please, Myra, I'll end it. I swear it was a mistake. A 4-month mistake. I know how it sounds. But I love Jessica." "Who is she?" He hesitated. "A colleague, Megan." Then he said the line I still hear in my head sometimes. "It's already fading." I was going to end it before the wedding. I looked down at the insurance form in my folder. His name was printed right under mine. 2 people who should have been protecting Jessica, standing in a parking lot, one holding evidence, the other holding his breath. "You have 1 week," I said. "1 week to what? To tell her yourself, or end it so completely she never has to know." He nodded too fast. "I will, I promise." I didn't believe him. But I also knew exactly what would happen if I told Jessica myself. Deanne would say I was jealous. Jessica would say I was trying to sabotage her happiness. And somehow I would become the villain in a story I didn't write, so I walked away. And yes, I hate myself for that silence. I told Colleen that night. We sat on her back porch with a bottle of wine between us that I never touched, and I told her everything. The parking lot, the woman, the 4 months, the lie. She didn't hesitate. Tell Jessica now. If I tell her, I said, my mother will say I'm trying to ruin the wedding because I'm bitter. And if you don't tell her, Colleen said. And she finds out later that you knew, what does that make you? I didn't answer. Because I already knew, complicit. And still, I stayed silent. Not because I wanted to protect Brandon, because I wanted to protect Jessica. As angry as I was, as invisible as they'd made me, she was still my little sister. I still remembered her at 18, crying in my car the night Dad died, clutching my sleeve like I was the only solid thing left in the world. So I made what I now know was a terrible decision. I gave Brandon time, 3 months. If he ended it, really ended it, maybe Jessica would never have to know. Maybe she could have her wedding, and I could carry one more secret in service of keeping the whole thing from falling apart. That was my mistake. I spent 8 years holding that family together with my bare hands. By then, I didn't know how to stop. The next 3 months passed in a blur. I didn't stalk Brandon, but I watched, paid attention. Megan's name stopped showing up on the office calendar at the front desk. When I finally got the insurance form signed 2 weeks later, yes, I signed it, Brandon couldn't even look at me. He just muttered thanks and shut his office door. I took that as progress. Maybe people could stop. Maybe I'd done the least damaging thing. The final days before the wedding were chaos. Seating charts, final counts, playlists, menu confirmations. I handled most of it quietly through email because by then, I'd been pushed out of the visible parts of planning. Nobody minded that setup. They were happy to let me do the invisible work, as long as I stayed invisible. 2 days before the wedding, I drove alone to Wren Valley Estate. I walked the stone patio where the ceremony was supposed to happen. I stood in the converted barn where the dinner would be served. I looked up at the string lights hanging between the oak trees. The venue manager, Teresa, met me near the gate. "Everything's confirmed, Miss Templeton," she said with a smile. "It's going to be beautiful." I nodded. I tried to feel happy. Instead, I felt dread. A low, steady hum of it. That night I went home, fed my cat, made dinner, sat on the couch and told myself, 2 more days, then it's over. My phone buzzed at 8:47 p.m., a text from Jessica. And that was the moment everything split in half. It said, "Hey, so Mom and Gail and I talked. We think it's best if you don't come tomorrow. It's a day for real family." I hope you understand. Real family. I read those 2 words 3 times. The first time I felt confusion. The second time clarity, the third time nothing. Just that cold stillness that comes right before glass shatters. I called Jessica, straight to voicemail. I called my mother. She picked up on the second ring, her tone already prepared. "Sweetheart, I really think this is best for everyone. Jessica needs her day to be peaceful. Peaceful from what? You know, Myra, you're always a lot. I paid for the entire wedding, and we appreciate that. But this isn't about money. Then what is it about?" There was a pause. In the background, I could hear Gail's voice. My mother had me on speaker. I was being managed. Finally, Diane said, carefully, "Jessica wants the people around her who make her feel safe." I hung up. I sat on my bed and stared at the wall. 20 minutes later, Colleen called. She hadn't heard it from me. She heard it from a mutual friend, because Jessica hadn't just texted me. She'd taken a screenshot of the message and posted it in the bridesmaid group chat, the one I'd been excluded from months ago. Her caption said, "Finally did it. No more drama, queen at my wedding." The replies rolled in fast. "Proud of you, babe. She'll get over it. About time, TBH, laughing emojis, waving gifs, mockery. 12 people. 12 people watching my sister turn my humiliation into entertainment. I sat there in the dark for 2 hours. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just replayed the last 8 years in my head like a highlight reel nobody wanted. Mortgage payments, tuition bills, rent, insurance, emergency transfers. $47,000 in wedding contracts. And at the end of all of it, a group chat full of laughing emojis. Then I picked up my phone and sent Jessica 5 words. Good. Real family can pay. That was it. A few minutes later, Colleen texted me again. She posted your reply in the chat. Jessica's comment underneath my message said, "She can take her charity back, I don't need it." That line would follow her longer than she knew. My mother texted me separately. "You're embarrassing yourself, Myra, stop." I didn't answer. I opened my laptop, opened the folder, and started reading every contract, every vendor agreement, every signature line, all with my name on them. I barely slept that night. At 7:00 the next morning, the morning of the wedding, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open and my phone in my hand. Colleen sat across from me with 2 mugs of coffee. Mine went cold. "You don't have to do this," she said, but her eyes said something else. They said, "If not now, when?" So I picked up the phone and called Wren Valley Estate. "Good morning. This is Myra Templeton. I need to cancel the reservation under my name for today's event." There was a beat of silence. Then Teresa said, carefully, "Miss Templeton, are you certain?" "The contract is under my name," I said. "I'm exercising my right to cancel it." "I understand," she said quietly. "I'll process it immediately." Then I called the caterer. Same conversation. Then the florist. Then the photographer. 4 phone calls, 12 minutes. My voice never shook. My hands did. I pressed them flat against the table between calls and steadied myself on the wood grain. When it was done, Colleen reached across the table and squeezed my wrist once. That was all I needed. $47,000 disappeared from Jessica's wedding in 12 minutes. Not because I wanted revenge. Because the woman whose name was on every legal contract had been told she wasn't family. So I acted accordingly. Then I turned my phone off, because I knew exactly what was coming. And here's what was happening across town while I sat in my kitchen in silence. My mother woke up early and started making coffee at Jessica's house. Hair and makeup were scheduled for 9. Gail arrived around 7:30 to help with final prep. Diane checked her phone, saw my text from the night before, *good, real family can pay, and laughed. I know this because my Aunt Carol told me later. Diane showed the phone to Gail and said, "Look at this, she thinks she's being clever." Gail barely looked. "She's bluffing," Gail said. "She wouldn't dare." My mother waved a hand. "She's threatened to stop helping before. Trust me, by this afternoon, she'll be at the door with pastries and an apology." That's what she does. And honestly, for 8 years she was right. That was what I did. I'd protest, I'd get guilted, then I'd cave every single time. What Diane didn't know was that this time was different. She didn't know about Brandon. She didn't know about Megan. She didn't know about the bridesmaid group chat. She didn't know that the daughter who always came back had finally run out of reasons to. By 8:00 a.m., Diane had already started controlling the narrative. She posted in the extended family group chat, "Just a heads up, Myra is being dramatic because she wasn't included in a few wedding decisions. Please don't engage with her today. She needs space to calm down." At 8:15, Aunt Carol called me. "Your mother says you're causing problems," she said carefully. "Honey, it's Jessica's big day. Did she tell you I paid for the wedding?" I asked. Silence. "She said Brandon's family covered the venue." "Brandon's family didn't pay a cent," I said. "I paid for the venue, the caterer, the flowers, and the photographer. $47,000. Every contract is under my name." Another silence. Then Carol asked, very softly, "Why didn't you say something sooner?" "Because I thought my family knew." There was a long pause. Then she asked, "What are you going to do?" "I already did it." And that was that. At 9:22 a.m., Jessica called the venue to confirm setup details. Teresa told her, "I'm sorry, but the reservation under Templeton was canceled this morning." Jessica said, "Canceled by who?" Teresa replied, "By Ms. Myra Templeton, the contract holder." Jessica said, "I'm Ms. Templeton, I'm the bride." And Teresa had to explain that those were not the same thing. At 9:31, my phone lit up. "Jessica," I answered. "Tell me she's lying," she said immediately. Her voice was shaking. "Tell me the venue is wrong." "The venue is canceled," I said. "So are the caterer, the florist, and the photographer." "You can't do this." "I didn't cancel your wedding, Jessica. I canceled my contracts." "What contracts?" Since when are they asterisk your contracts? That part hit me hardest. She genuinely didn't know. She'd never read a single agreement, never asked whose legal name was attached to anything. She had pointed, chosen, demanded, and assumed the machine behind it would keep running forever. Since I signed them, I said. Since I paid for them. Since my name is on every line. In the background, I heard Diane, "What is happening?" Then the line went dead. My mother called the venue next, then the caterer, then the florist. Then the photographer. Every call ended the same way. The contracts are under Myra Templeton's name. She canceled them. They cannot be reinstated without her approval and new payment. That's when Gail finally learned the truth. She'd been standing in the hallway listening to Diane's side of those calls. When Diane hung up, Gail said, very quietly, "You told me your family was handling the venue." Diane said nothing. "Who paid for it, Diane? It's complicated. Who paid for the venue? Myra handled the deposits." Gail stared at her. "Handled, you mean paid?" Diane's jaw tightened. "Yes, and the caterer. Yes, the flowers. Yes, the photographer. Yes." Gail set down the corsage she was holding. Then she said the sentence my mother deserved to hear from someone besides me. "You allowed the woman financing this entire wedding to be uninvited from her own contracts." Diane had no answer. Because there was no answer, Gail took control. She called her own contacts and rerouted the entire wedding to Diane's backyard. And from there, the whole day unraveled in public. Colleen had a friend named Dana on Jessica's guest list, and Dana texted updates all morning like a war correspondent. *10:14 a.m., bride says the venue changed. This is chaos. 10:38 a.m., Brandon's mom is barking orders. People are dragging folding chairs into the yard. *11:02 a.m., the makeup artist left. Nobody told her the location changed. 11:47 a.m., flowers are from Costco, I'm not joking. I sat on my couch reading those texts and felt almost nothing. Not satisfaction, not guilt. Just emptiness. The kind that comes after carrying something impossibly heavy for so long that, when you finally set it down, your body doesn't know how to stand without it. The guests started arriving around 1. They had invitations that said *Wren Valley, Estate ***. Instead, they pulled up to my mother's vinyl-sided colonial with a rusted swing set in the backyard and a garden hose coiled by the porch. "What happened to the venue?" people asked. "Change of plans," Diane said with a stretched smile. "We decided to do something more intimate." No one believed that, not for a second. By 1:45, the real story was circulating. Aunt Carol told her husband, he told his brother told his wife, and soon enough people knew who had paid, how much, why the venue had vanished. Then someone repeated Jessica's line from the group chat, "She can take her charity back, I don't need it." That sentence moved through the crowd like a ripple through shallow water. People looked around, at the folding chairs, the Costco flowers, the Bluetooth speaker, the potluck dishes on the kitchen counter, the supermarket sheet cake, "She can take her charity back." And suddenly every cheap substitute in that backyard became evidence of exactly how much she did need it. The ceremony happened at 2, short, awkward, functional. A local efficient Gail found that morning. Jessica walked down a strip of white fabric laid over grass, holding a bouquet whose stems were still wrapped in Costco cellophane. Diane walked beside her, chin high, refusing to look at the guests. Brandon smiled the way he always smiled, wide, practiced, built for an audience. Jessica's voice cracked twice during the vows. Then came the reception, or what passed for one: pop-up canopy, sandwich platters, fruit trays, a Bluetooth speaker shuffling Ed Sheeran. People tried very hard to act like this was normal. At 3:15, it stopped being possible. At one of the tables on Brandon's side sat a woman named Karen, one of his coworkers. She was on her second glass of wine, talking to 2 of Brandon's college friends, when office gossip drifted into the conversation. "I can't believe he actually went through with it," she said, gesturing toward Brandon. "After everything with Megan." The 2 friends frowned. "What do you mean?" Karen paused, realized. And then it was too late. Within 10 minutes, the name *Megan* had traveled through the guests and landed right in front of Jessica. Dana's text to Colleen just said, "Oh my God, oh my God." She's asking who Megan is. In front of everyone, Jessica stood there in her dress, bouquet in hand, and said loud enough for half the yard to hear, "Who is Megan?" Brandon tried to calm her down. "Babe, it's nothing. Who is Megan?" And this time, he couldn't lie fast enough. Not with 60 people staring at him, not with the whole fake wedding already hanging together by string. He admitted enough, not all of it, but enough. Enough for Jessica to go silent, enough for the bouquet to slip from her hands and land in the grass. Enough for her to lower herself into the nearest white plastic chair and stare at the ground like the answer might be written in the dirt. Gail moved first. She crossed the yard, grabbed Brandon by the arm and hissed, "We're leaving, now." He didn't resist. My mother stood by the cake table with one hand braced against it, staring at the Walmart sheet cake like it might tell her what to do next. By 3:45, the backyard was nearly empty. Nobody cut the cake, nobody danced, nobody pretended anymore. And no, before you ask, I did not engineer that part. I didn't send Karen. I didn't script the exposure. I didn't whisper Megan's name into the wrong ear. All I did was stop protecting a lie that was never mine to carry. Sometimes when you finally step back, the truth doesn't need your help anymore. It rises all by itself. Jessica called me at 6 that evening. I was sitting on my kitchen floor, back against the cabinet, eating cereal out of the box because I didn't have the energy to cook. My cat was asleep on the counter. Colleen had gone home an hour earlier after making me promise to eat something. I answered. I didn't say hello, I just waited. Her breathing was uneven. "How long did you know?" she asked. 3 months. Silence. Then very quietly, 3 months. Not a question, a measurement. Like she was counting every dinner, every phone call, every time I had looked at her and said nothing. "Why didn't you tell me?" I leaned my head back against the cabinet and stared at the ceiling. "Because if I told you, Mom would have said I was trying to ruin your life. She would have called me jealous, and you would have believed her." Jessica didn't argue. That was the worst part. She didn't argue because she knew I was right. "So you would have let me marry him?" "You didn't marry him," I said. "Karen stopped that. But you would have." I closed my eyes. "I don't know," I said. "I've been asking myself that every day for 3 months. She started crying again, not loud, not dramatic, just exhausted. I said, "I'm sorry," and I meant it. Not for canceling the contracts, for staying silent. That was the part I regretted. The line went dead a few seconds later. That wasn't forgiveness. That was grief. 2 days later, Diane called. I was at my desk at work, halfway through a turkey sandwich when my phone lit up with her name. I picked up on the third ring. She didn't bother with hello. "Are you happy now?" she snapped. "You destroyed your sister's life." I set my sandwich down, wiped my hands on a napkin, and said, very calmly, "I didn't make Brandon cheat. I didn't invite Karen. I canceled contracts that were legally mine after being told I wasn't family. You always have to be right. You always have to stand above everyone." "Mom," I said, "I paid your mortgage for 6 years. I paid Jessica's tuition. I spent $47,000 on a wedding I was banned from. I am not standing above anyone. I am exhausted." Then I said the one thing I'd been holding in for years. "If Dad were alive, he never would have let you tell me I'm not family." Silence. Heavy, ugly silence. I could hear the kitchen clock in her house ticking in the background, the old one Dad bought at a flea market in 1998. Finally, I said, "I'm not asking you to agree with me. I'm telling you I'm done." Done with what? Done paying, done pretending, done being the person who holds everything together so everyone else can act like it holds itself. She hung up. I finished my sandwich, drank my water, went back to work. It was the most peaceful lunch I'd had in 8 years. That week, I sat down with my financial advisor, Patricia. She had been gently warning me for years that my family obligations were eating my future alive. She never pushed. She just showed me the numbers and let them speak. This time, I didn't need the numbers to speak. I needed them to stop. I want to cancel the automatic mortgage payment to my mother's house, I said. Effective immediately. Patricia nodded. No surprise, no judgment. Anything else? Pull up everything I've paid on behalf of my family. She turned the monitor toward me. 6 years of mortgage payments, 4 years of tuition. Insurance premiums, emergency transfers, wedding vendors, line after line after line. At the bottom of the spreadsheet was the total, $214,600. I stared at it for a long time. $214,600. More than a house down payment. More than a decade of retirement contributions. More than most people around here earn in several years. And what had it bought me? A mother who said I wasn't family, a sister who called me a drama queen, a group chat full of laughing emojis. I want a formal notice sent, I said. Email, paper trail. Payment stop immediately. She needs to make other arrangements. Patricia drafted it on the spot. Professional, clear, final. I signed it. She sent it. That night, Colleen met me for dinner and asked how I felt. I thought about it for a second, then said, like I just set down something heavy, and my arms don't know what to do now. She raised her glass. They'll learn. 3 days later, I got a call I didn't expect. Grandma Ruth, 72, sharp as a blade wrapped in a quilt. She lived in assisted living not because she couldn't take care of herself, but because her knees had made peace with stairs impossible. She didn't waste time on small talk. Carol told me everything, she said. Are you mad at me? I asked. I sounded 12 again. I'm mad at myself, she said. I watched Diane do this to you for years and I didn't say enough. Then she said something that broke me. You know who you remind me of? Your father. Same heart, same habit. He gave until there was nothing left. I said nothing. And then she added softly, he would have told you to stop a long time ago. That was when I cried, for the first time since Jessica's text. Not elegantly, not quietly. The kind of crying where your whole body joins in. Ruth stayed on the line and let me fall apart. She didn't shush me, didn't rush me, didn't tell me it was okay. She just waited, and when I finally calmed down, she said, don't go back out of guilt. Go back only if you want to. And only if they learn how to hold you too. Over the next few weeks, my mother's world got smaller. Aunt Carol stopped calling as often. At church, people made room for Diane in the way small towns do when they know something ugly and don't need to say it aloud. Nobody confronted her. They just shifted, and somehow that was worse. The mortgage notice came 3 weeks after I stopped paying it. I heard about it through Carol, not because she wanted to hurt me, because she was worried about the house. I listened. And for the first time in my life, I did nothing. That's the part nobody tells you about boundaries. They don't feel triumphant. They feel like standing on a cliff you built yourself, watching a bridge burn behind you, knowing you're the one who lit the match. Jessica's aftermath was quieter. She officially ended things with Brandon 4 days after the backyard disaster. He moved out of the apartment. It turned out his salary was nowhere near what he had claimed. Another lie added to the pile. Gail cut ties completely. No yelling, no scene, just silence. And in a small town, silence can be louder than screaming. Jessica moved back into my mother's house. Back into her childhood room, twin bed, lavender comforter, all of it. 3 weeks after the wedding, she sent me a text. I know you think I deserved all of this. I read it. Considered a dozen responses. Sent none, not because I wanted to punish her, because I wasn't ready. Some wounds need silence before they can hold words. Then something unexpected happened. A month after the wedding, I got promoted. Senior manager, corner office, pay raise, official recognition for work I'd already been doing for 2 years. During the announcement, my boss said, Myra delivers consistently and she never asks for credit. I almost laughed out loud. Of course I never asked for credit, I'd been trained not to. But the promotion wasn't even the biggest change. The biggest change was quieter. For the first time in 8 years, I wasn't budgeting around someone else's crisis. No emergency transfers. No just this once checks. No auto drafts disappearing from my account to keep someone else afloat. My quarterly statement came in, and I stared at the balance like it belonged to a stranger. I moved apartments, a one-bedroom closer to Ruth's facility. Nothing fancy, but it had a small balcony, good morning light, and enough space for my cat to spend half the day stretched out in a sunbeam like royalty. On weekends, Ruth and I ate pie cherry for her, pecan for me, and watched Jeopardy reruns. She yelled at contestants when they missed easy answers. I refilled her tea. And for those 2 hours, the world felt manageable. I also started therapy. Dr. Adler, mid-50s, reading glasses on a chain, calm voice, terrifyingly observant. In the first session, she asked me one question that completely shut me down. "If you stop giving," she said, "who are you?" I stared at her. "I don't know," I admitted. "I've never not been giving," she nodded. "Then that's where we start." 3 months after the wedding, Jessica sent a second text. This one was different, not defensive, not accusatory. It said, "I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know that I finally understand what it costs to be the one who holds everything together." I took that for granted not once, but every single time. "And I'm sorry I didn't see it until you stopped." I read it on my balcony at sunset, with my cat on my lap and the October sky turning everything amber. I didn't reply. But I didn't delete it either. That mattered. Colleen came over that Friday. I showed her the message. "Are you going to answer?" she asked. "Maybe when I'm ready." "And when's that?" "When I can respond because I want to," I said, "not because I feel obligated to." She smiled. "That's the healthiest thing you've ever said." I later heard through Carol that Jessica had started therapy too, that she got an entry-level marketing job in the next town over, that she'd started helping my mother with groceries. There was a part of me that wanted to reach out. The old part. The part that still remembered the girl who clung to my sleeve the night Dad died. But there was another part of me now, quieter, steadier, that said, "Wait. Make sure you're walking toward healing, not just back into the same cage." So I waited. One Sunday in late October, I drove to the cemetery. I parked under the old oak tree and walked the gravel path to my father's headstone. James Templeton, 1971-2016, beloved husband and father. I sat in the grass. For years, I'd come there and talked to him like I was delivering a financial report. Here's what I paid. Here's what I handled. Here's what I fixed. As if my job was to keep updating the dead on how well I was sacrificing myself. This time, I said something else. I kept my promise. I sat there, looking at his name. 8 years. I kept the house. I kept Mom stable. I got Jessica through school. I paid for everything. I showed up every time. Then I took a breath and said the thing I had never let myself say out loud. But I lost myself doing it. A bird landed on the headstone for a second, then flew away. And I said, "I think if you were here, you would have told me to stop a long time ago." I sat there in the quiet for 10 more minutes. Then I stood up, touched the top of the stone, and whispered, "I kept that promise. Now I'm making a new one to myself." People ask me sometimes if I regret what I did. The answer comes in 2 parts. Do I regret canceling the vendors? No, those contracts had my name on them. I paid every dollar. I was told I wasn't family. I acted accordingly. I didn't destroy the wedding. I removed what was mine. The rest collapsed under the weight of its own lies. Do I regret keeping Brandon's secret for 3 months? Yes, every day. I should have told Jessica immediately. I should have laid that truth on the table the moment I saw him in that parking lot. But I didn't. Because I was still trying to protect people who didn't value me enough to accept the truth from my mouth. That silence is the one thing I would take back. But here's what I've learned. You cannot protect someone from the truth, and you do not owe anyone your sacrifice if they do not consider you worth keeping. A boundary is not revenge. It is not cruelty. It is not selfishness. It is the moment you finally say, "I exist, I matter, and I choose myself," not because you don't love them, but because loving them was destroying you and nobody noticed. I used to think boundaries were walls. Now I know they're doors. And for the first time in my life, I understand that I get to decide who walks through. Not my mother, not my sister. Not the ghost of a promise I made to a dead man. Me. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my apartment on a Thursday night. There's pasta on the stove, nothing complicated, just garlic, olive oil, and whatever vegetables are left in the fridge. My cat is on the counter again. The balcony door is open. November air is drifting in, and one of Dad's old playlists is on shuffle: Springsteen, Tom Petty, Fleetwood Mac. Diane hasn't called. I don't wait for it anymore. She refinanced the house. Carol helped her find a broker. The payment is higher now, but it's hers, her name, her responsibility. Jessica is working, paying her own rent, going to therapy. Carol says she's changed, quieter, more careful with people. I don't know whether that's growth or exhaustion. Sometimes they look the same from a distance. I still haven't answered her second text, but I haven't deleted it either. It sits there like a door I may open one day. Not today, not tomorrow, but maybe someday. Ruth and I still eat pie on Saturdays. Last week she beat me at Scrabble by 42 points and told me I was slipping. I told her she was cheating. She told me to prove it. I couldn't. I don't know how this story ends. I don't know whether Jessica and I find our way back to each other. I don't know if Diane will ever understand what she did. But I know this: I am no longer the safety net for people who do not value me, and for the first time in 8 years, that is enough. So that's my story. If you had to choose between protecting your peace or protecting a family that never protects you, what would you choose? Put it in the comments. A for peace, asterisk B for family. And if you want to hear another story about someone who finally stopped being the family ATM, check the description. Trust me, that one is wild. Thanks for staying until the end. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.